but it's really about getting people in the office, or at least a minimum number of people in the office to make it an interesting experience.
For today's panel, I'd like to introduce JanJaap Boogaard, who is EMEA's head of Workplace Advisory for Colliers.
Really appreciate you for having me.
He actually just released his own report on vibrancy, and we'll kind of dive into that a little bit.
It's always a pleasure to have JanJaap. You recently published your research transforming offices into magnets for talent. You're using Basking benchmarks as well. And so the path to vibrant office, moving towards what's required to build a buzzing office, right? That's really, I think, important insight.
But it's really about getting people in the office, or at least a minimum number of people in the office to make it an interesting experience. And a lot of offices are below that 50%, which doesn't make them interesting for people to go to.
You get our data, you did surveys, you did in-depth interviews. What's really interesting is you actually suggest certain things to act, right? So maybe you could walk us through a little bit, through your thinking here.
We looked at like when does an office become vibrant, which means there are enough people in the office to connect with, and there's like a buzz, and it's an interesting place to go to. And we see that most of the time an office is like quiet or dead, which means it's not interesting enough for a lot of people to take the effort to go to the office. Only a small percentage of the time, about 16%, that's like global average, it is vibrant and it is dynamic, which means the office is occupied between 50 and 85% of the time. And then we have like two other categories, like busy and overly busy, which means that it's overcrowded and there's too much disturbance and it's too noisy to work, which is also not what most people want. So it's really about aiming for that vibrant space. So we see significant opportunities to increase the amount of time that the office is vibrant. And on one end, that can be done by reducing the space. So we're working with a lot of companies optimizing their portfolios. On one end, from an efficiency perspective, but I think even as important, to make the office more interesting and significantly increase the percentage of the time that the office is vibrant. But that's of course, one thing you can do. So you can reduce your space. So with the same occupancy, the same number of people in the building, it becomes more dynamic and more vibrant. Also works, for example, on specific weekdays. So we discussed the Mondays and the Fridays, which are, especially in EMEA, still often lower occupancy days. So we see quite a lot of companies also closing parts of buildings during those days and combining different teams in one area of the office. Not necessarily to be more efficient or to reduce cost, or maybe to a certain extent be more sustainable as well, because you can switch off the heating and the lighting in those areas. But the main reason for it is to make it a more interesting experience for people and to show that there are more people around in the office. But that's one option, so reducing the space or closing it down on specific moments. And of course, then the other option is to get people back more to the office, which can be done through mandates. But we see that that's not always as effective and differs a lot per country and per region, as we discussed before. We asked people like what drives you to come back to the office more. We didn't just ask them that question directly, but we looked at, okay, what are the key characteristics that people are facing today? What's their current behaviors and how often they go to the office? And then we looked for correlations between the two, which is different than a lot of studies that directly ask a question like, if you get a free lunch, do you come in more or not? That's not what we did. We looked at person A is coming in 3 days a week. Does that person have free lunch or not? Combined with a lot of other things, and then did a regression analysis between the two.
That's really fascinating. I think we definitely need to go a bit deeper, right?